My daughter ignored me for 5 years as if I didn't exist, but I still sent her greetings. But when she saw my new $150,000 Mercedes on Facebook, she immediately called. "I'll be waiting for you tomorrow for dinner. Bring $200,000 with you." She was waiting for money, but I came with a surprise that would change our lives forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The morning had settled into its usual rhythm. I sat in my home office, laptop screen glowing with investment portfolios, modest gains, steady returns, nothing exciting. Outside my Philadelphia row house, the August heat was already building. I'd finished my coffee, answered a few emails, and was considering whether to water the small garden out back when my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it for 3 rings, thumb hovering over the decline button. Spam calls came daily now, but something made me answer. "Hello? This is Cora." The voice arrived like a winter draft, formal, flat, carrying no warmth whatsoever. "I'm having dinner tomorrow evening at 6. You should come." My chest tightened. 5 years. 5 years of silence, of birthday cards returned to sender, of text messages that never earned even a single word reply. And now this. My daughter's voice in my ear again, as if no time had passed, as if she hadn't cut me out of her life completely. "Cora," I managed to keep my voice steady, though my hand gripped the phone harder. It's good to hear from you. I didn't expect... Tomorrow at 6. She cut through my words like scissors through paper. "My address hasn't changed. Bring $200,000 with you." The number hit me like a physical blow. I sat up straighter, the portfolio spreadsheet forgotten. 200... What? "Cora, I don't understand. Why now? Why... It's not complicated." Her tone suggested I was being deliberately obtuse. "Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Don't be late." The line went dead. I sat there, phone still pressed against my ear, listening to silence. Slowly, I lowered it to the desk. My hand was trembling, not from my 67 years, but from the sheer audacity of what had just occurred. $200,000. Demanded as casually as someone might request I bring a bottle of wine. I stood, legs unsteady, and walked to the kitchen. My coffee sat where I'd left it, now cold. I poured it anyway, held the mug with both hands, and moved to the window overlooking my backyard. The small patch of grass needed mowing. The tomato plants I'd started in spring were heavy with fruit. Normal things. Mundane things. Things that made sense. Nothing about that phone call made sense. 5 years ago, everything had fractured. I'd sold my construction company, 43 years building it from nothing into something solid and respectable. The sale price was substantial. I'd been generous, I thought, given Cora and Stuart $300,000 outright, no strings attached, helped them buy their house, start their life together. It hadn't been enough. The memory surfaced unbidden. Stuart standing in my living room, arms crossed over his chest, that smug expression twisting his features. "You sold the company for over $2 million and gave us scraps," he'd said, his voice dripping with contempt. "We deserved half of that, at least." And Cora, my daughter, standing beside him, not defending me, not acknowledging the gift, the generosity, the years I'd spent building something to pass on. Instead, she'd looked at me with cold calculation and said, "Maybe if you'd been fair to your family, we wouldn't have to do this." Do this. As if I were the transgressor, as if expecting gratitude for a $300,000 gift made me some kind of villain. I'd tried to explain. The company sale included debts, obligations, retirement funds for employees who'd worked for me for decades. The $2 million wasn't $2 million in my pocket. But Stuart had talked over me, his voice rising, accusing me of hiding money, of cheating them, of loving my employees more than my own blood. Cora had said nothing more. Just watched me with those expressionless eyes, while her husband dismantled our relationship sentence by sentence. I'd asked them to leave. They'd left. That was 5 years ago. Since then, silence. I'd sent birthday cards, holiday messages, texts asking if we could talk, if we could find some middle ground. Nothing. Each message a small humiliation, a reminder that my daughter had chosen money over me. And now this. I set down the coffee mug and moved to the living room bookshelf. The photo album was where it always lived. spine worn from years of handling. I opened it carefully. Cora at 5, gap-toothed and laughing, riding on my shoulders at the park. Cora at 18, cap and gown, diploma held high, her smile so wide and genuine. Cora at 29, wedding day, white dress flowing, looking at Stuart with such hope. When had that hope curdled into this cold transaction? I pulled out my phone again, opened the message thread with her name. 5 years of one-sided conversation stared back at me. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Hope you're doing well. Merry Christmas. Would love to hear from you. Thinking of you today. Miss you. Each one a monument to rejection, a testament to silence. I placed the phone face down on the coffee table. My hands wanted to shake, but I wouldn't allow it. I picked up the cold coffee and drank it anyway, using the bitter taste to center myself, to push through the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm my composure. I needed to think. I needed to understand. What had changed? What triggered this sudden contact after 5 years of nothing? Why exactly 200,000? Why tomorrow? The morning sun climbed higher outside my window. I sat in my chair, the photo album still open on my lap, and forced myself to breathe slowly, to think clearly, to not react, but to analyze. Finally, I reached for my laptop, opened Facebook, something I rarely bothered with anymore. Logged in to check something that was nagging at the back of my mind. My profile loaded. There, at the top of my feed, was the post from yesterday. The photo I'd taken in a moment of simple pride. My new Mercedes S-Class, silver and gleaming in my driveway. The caption, treating myself after some successful investments. Life is good. I stared at the screen, at the view count, at the list of who had seen it, and there, among the names, Cora Fields. My breath stopped. The timestamp showed she'd viewed it multiple times. Yesterday evening, 6 p.m., 7:15, 9:43. 3 separate visits to look at my car, my caption, my small moment of satisfaction. This morning, she'd called. I took a screenshot, my fingers moving automatically while my mind processed what this meant. The timing wasn't coincidence. It couldn't be. 5 years of absolute silence and less than 24 hours after I posted a photograph of an expensive car. My phone rang with demands for money. 24 hours, I said aloud to my empty house. That's all it took. One picture of a car, and suddenly, I'm worth calling after 5 years. The Mercedes had cost me $150,000. A splurge, yes, but I'd earned it. Decades of careful investing, of living modestly while building wealth, slowly and deliberately. The car was beautiful, comfortable, a small reward for patience and discipline. Cora had seen it and calculated. Calculated that if I could afford that car, I must have liquid assets. Calculated that I was weak enough, lonely enough, desperate enough for her contact that I'd comply with any demand. Calculated that she could snap her fingers and I'd come running with my checkbook open. The realization cut deeper than the original phone call. This wasn't a change of heart. This wasn't regret or reconciliation or even basic human decency. This was predatory. She'd seen an opportunity and moved on it with the precision of someone circling wounded prey. I closed Facebook and opened a new browser tab, typed Pennsylvania Estate Law Inheritance Rights, then Irrevocable Trust Structures, then Disinheritance Legal Requirements, Pennsylvania. My construction business had taught me many things. One of them was to do thorough groundwork before any major project. Another was that professionals existed for a reason. You didn't wire your own electrical systems or plumb your own buildings. You hired experts who knew the codes, the regulations, the pitfalls. I needed an expert now. My desk drawer held business cards accumulated over years of contracts and collaborations. I flipped through them until I found what I wanted. Margaret Chen, attorney at law. Chen Law Associates. I'd used her for business contracts, for the company sale paperwork, for a few property disputes over the years. She was sharp, discreet, and didn't waste time on pleasantries when work needed doing. I studied the card, rehearsing in my mind what I'd say. The estrangement, the sudden contact after 5 years, the demand for money, my suspicion about her motives, and my desire, no, my need, to protect what I'd built, to send a message about respect, about family, about consequences. If she thinks I'll just hand over money because she snapped her fingers, I muttered, pulling my phone closer. She learned nothing. Nothing from what happened 5 years ago. I dialed the office number. 2 rings. Chen Law Associates. How may I help you? The receptionist's voice was pleasant, professional. This is Harley Fields. I kept my tone level, businesslike. I need to speak with Margaret Chen today if possible. It's urgent, regarding estate planning and family matters. A pause. The sound of keyboard clicks. Ms. Chen has a full schedule today, Mr. Fields. Could we arrange something for next week? Please tell her it concerns restructuring my will and potentially establishing a trust. I made my voice firm but polite. Today, I can work around her schedule. One moment, please. Hold music played. I stared at Cora's photograph on my phone screen. The wedding photo, years old. Her smile wide and genuine. When had I stopped seeing my daughter in that smile? When had it become just a stranger's face? Mr. Fields? The receptionist returned. Ms. Chen can see you at 4 this afternoon. Will that work? I'll be there. Thank you. I set the phone down carefully. 4 o'clock. That gave me several hours to prepare, to organize my thoughts, to gather whatever documentation Margaret might need. I looked at the computer screen, still showing search results about estate law. Looked at my phone, at the Facebook screenshot. Looked at my hands. Steady now, no tremor. You want to play this game? I said quietly to Cora's photograph. Fine. But this time, we play by my rules. The hurt was still there. That deep old wound of parental rejection, of being valued only for what I could provide financially. But something else was growing alongside it now, something cold and calculated and precise. I wasn't going to be a victim this time. I wasn't going to let her use my love for her as a weapon against me. I'd spent 5 years hoping for reconciliation, sending messages into the void, keeping the door open for her return. She'd kicked that door shut, locked it, and now she wanted to pick the lock only when she saw something inside worth stealing. Not anymore. I glanced at the clock. Nearly noon. The appointment was at 4. I had time to think this through properly, to approach it the way I'd approached every major decision in my business career, with preparation, with professional advice, with a clear understanding of goals and consequences. I closed the laptop with a sense of purpose, stood up, moved toward the bedroom. There were documents I needed to locate, the original will, financial statements, records of the gift I'd given Cora and Stuart 5 years ago. Margaret would want to see everything, understand the full picture before advising me. But more than that, I needed to prepare myself mentally. This wasn't about revenge in the petty sense. This was about teaching a lesson that should have been learned long ago. About demonstrating that respect couldn't be demanded with threats. That family was more than a resource to be exploited. About showing my daughter that actions had consequences. I had several hours before the appointment. Several hours to gather what I needed, to think through what I wanted to achieve, to transform from the shocked father who'd answered the phone this morning into someone who could make difficult decisions with clarity and conviction. The man who'd built a construction company from nothing understood foundations, understood that you didn't build something lasting on soft ground, understood that sometimes you had to tear down a crumbling structure before you could rebuild correctly. Today, I would start laying a new foundation. The drive through Philadelphia traffic gave me time to think. I'd spent the intervening hours gathering documents, financial statements, property deeds, investment portfolios, everything Margaret would need to understand the full scope of what I was protecting, what I was taking away. The office building was modern glass and steel, professional without being pretentious. I'd been here before, years ago, when Margaret handled contracts for the construction company. The parking garage smelled of concrete and exhaust. I took the elevator to the 4th floor, carrying a leather folder, thick with evidence. The reception area hadn't changed. Muted gray carpet, framed diplomas on cream walls, the quiet hum of filtered air and distant keyboards. The receptionist looked up and smiled with recognition. Mr. Fields, Ms. Chen is expecting you. Margaret emerged from her office before I could sit. Mid-50s, sharp-eyed, her handshake firm and brief. She noticed something different in me immediately. I could see it in how her gaze lingered a moment longer than necessary. Harley, come in. Her conference room overlooked the city, afternoon light slanting through vertical blinds. I sat across from her at the polished table and opened my folder, laying out evidence methodically. The Facebook post, screenshots with timestamps. Cora's viewing history, 3 separate visits to stare at my car. A timeline I'd written documenting 5 years of ignored birthday cards, unanswered messages, complete silence. She hasn't spoken to me in 5 years, I said, my voice level. Not a word. Yesterday I posted a photo of my new car, and this morning she called demanding $200,000. That tells me everything I need to know about why she reached out. Margaret took notes on a legal pad, her pen moving steadily. Tell me about the estrangement, I explained. The company sale, the $300,000 I'd given them, Stuart's accusations, his contempt, his insistence I'd cheated them. Cora standing beside him, saying nothing in my defense, choosing his narrative over our relationship. Since then, nothing, I continued. I tried. I sent cards, messages. I kept the door open. I tapped the timeline. Every attempt documented here. Every rejection. Margaret studied the papers without speaking for a long moment. When she looked up, her expression remained professionally neutral, but something in her eyes suggested recognition. She'd seen this pattern before in her estate planning practice. What do you want to do, Mr. Fields? I want to create a new will. The words came easier than I had expected. I want to disinherit Cora completely. Everything I have, approximately $1.8 million in assets, goes to the Construction Industry Veterans Support Fund instead. Margaret set down her pen. Mr. Fields, I need to ask this clearly. Are you certain about this decision? Disinheriting your only child is legally valid, but it's permanent. Once you present this to her, there's no walking it back. I've had 5 years to think about what family means, I said. She made her choice then. I'm making mine now. She nodded slowly, pulled a legal pad closer. If she contests this, she'll likely claim undue influence or diminished capacity. We need to document that you're acting voluntarily, that you understand the implications, and that your reasoning is sound. Then document it. I want this ironclad. I leaned forward slightly. I'm not punishing her. I'm protecting what I built from someone who only sees it as money she's owed. Margaret stood and walked to her bookshelf, returning with a thick Pennsylvania state law reference. She opened it to a marked section, turned it toward me. Pennsylvania law gives you testamentary freedom, she explained. You can disinherit adult children, but challenges are possible, so we make it bulletproof. Her finger traced down the page. We'll include a detailed recital of your reasons. The more specific we are about your relationship history and her conduct, the stronger the will becomes. And you're certain about the charitable beneficiary? The Construction Industry Veterans Fund. I didn't hesitate. Those people built their lives with their hands, just like I did. They deserve support more than someone who can't see past a dollar sign. She made notes. We'll also include a no contest clause. Anyone who challenges the will forfeits any potential inheritance. Not that there would be any for her, but it adds another layer of protection. For the next hour, we worked through details, specific language, asset inventory, witness requirements, notarization procedures. Margaret asked probing questions about my mental state, my understanding of consequences, my voluntary decision-making. Standard procedure, she explained, to demonstrate competency if the will was ever challenged. I answered everything clearly, providing the financial documents she needed, explaining my reasoning without emotion or anger. This was business, strategic, the same way I'd approached every major decision in my construction career. Finally, Margaret closed her legal pad. I'll draft this tonight and have it ready by 9 tomorrow morning. Given the urgency and the complexity, I'll need a substantial retainer. I wrote the check without blinking. This wasn't impulsive, it was calculated. One more thing, I said. I want 5 notarized copies prepared. Her pen paused mid-note. You want 5 notarized copies for tomorrow? That's unconventional. Most people keep wills private until after death. I allowed myself a slight, cold smile. I'm not most people, and I want her to understand exactly what her phone call cost her. Margaret studied me for a moment, then nodded. I'll arrange it. She stood, extending her hand. I shook it, feeling the firmness of her grip, the professional confidence that told me she'd create exactly what I needed. As I reached the door, she spoke again. Harley, this path you're choosing, it's legal, It's your right. But it's also final. Make sure you can live with it. I turned back. I've already lived with her choice for 5 years. Now she can live with mine. I walked down the hallway, took the elevator to the parking garage, sat in my car for a moment before starting the engine. The weight of what I'd set in motion felt substantial, real in a way that the morning's anger hadn't been, but my resolve didn't waver. Tomorrow morning, Margaret would have the documents. Tomorrow evening, Cora would discover what her calculated phone call had actually accomplished. I drove home through lengthening shadows, the city lights beginning to glow against the darkening sky. I woke before dawn, my sleep fractured by anticipation rather than doubt. The bedroom was gray with pre-sunrise light. I lay still for a moment, feeling the weight of what today would bring, then rose and moved through my morning routine with deliberate normalcy. Coffee, shower, shave. I dressed carefully, dark jeans, a pressed button-down shirt, nothing flashy. I wasn't trying to impress anyone, just maintaining dignity. My phone showed an email from Margaret, sent at 7:30. Documents ready for pickup. Office opens at 8:30. MC. I drove through light morning traffic, retracing yesterday's route. The city was quieter at this hour, the streets not yet choked with commuters. Margaret's receptionist buzzed me in immediately. Margaret met me in the lobby, holding a large manila envelope, sealed with her firm's label. Her expression was serious. "Everything's here," she said. "Original and 5 copies. I've included the affidavit of mental competency, as we discussed." She paused. "Robert Kowalski, the notary I mentioned. His office is on Walnut Street, 15 minutes from here. I called ahead. He's expecting you." I took the envelope, felt its weight. "Thank you, Margaret." "Good luck, Harley." She didn't specify with what. Robert Kowalski's office occupied the ground floor of an older building, the kind with high ceilings and crown molding that spoke to an earlier era. The sign beside the door read, "Kowalski Notary Services since 1995. Inside, the space was small, but impeccably organized. File cabinets lined one wall. A simple desk held a computer, a heavy embosser, and neat stacks of forms. Robert himself was maybe 62, gray-haired, wearing reading glasses on a chain around his neck. "Mr. Fields?" He extended his hand. "Margaret Chen speaks highly of you. Please sit." His assistant, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, nodded at me from a second desk near the window. I sat across from Robert, opening the envelope and withdrawing the documents. He examined each page methodically, checking signature lines, witness blocks, completeness, the careful bureaucracy that transformed paper into legal armor. "Mr. Fields, I'm required to ask, are you signing this document of your own free will, without any pressure or coercion from any person?" "Yes." My voice was steady. "Completely voluntary. I've thought about this carefully. And you understand this is your last will and testament, that it supersedes any previous wills, and that it directs the disposition of your estate upon your death." "I understand completely. That's exactly what I want." Robert studied me for a moment over his glasses. "I've been doing this 30 years, Mr. Fields. Usually people signing wills look uncomfortable, like they're planning their funeral. You look decided." I allowed a slight humorless smile. "That's because I'm not planning my death. I'm planning something else entirely." He nodded slowly, turned to his assistant. "Linda, we'll need you as witness." The process was formal and precise. Robert positioned the first document, the original, in front of me, indicated where to sign. I wrote my name clearly, dated it. Linda stepped forward, added her signature, and printed name as witness. Robert did the same. Then his notary seal, a heavy embosser that created a raised impression, the distinctive mark of authentication. He applied it carefully, added his signature, filled in the official certificate. "5 copies as well?" Linda asked, glancing at the stack. "Yes," I confirmed. We repeated the process 5 more times. 6 signatures total, each one deliberate and clear. 6 notarizations, each seal pressed firmly into paper, transforming drafts into official legal instruments. Robert's assistant spoke as she signed the 4th copy. "You requested 5 additional notarized copies. That's unusual for a will. Most people just need the original." "I have unusual circumstances," I said. "I need to make sure certain people understand exactly where things stand." When we finished, Robert stacked the documents neatly, slid them back into the envelope. I paid his fee in cash, I'd come prepared, and received a receipt. "These are now official legal instruments, Mr. Fields," Robert said. "Keep them secure." "I will." I left his office carrying the envelope, drove 3 blocks, then pulled into an empty parking space, sat for a moment with the engine running, opened the envelope, withdrew the top document, my signature, the notary seal, raised and official, the date, today, the words, "I hereby disinherit my daughter, Cora Elizabeth Fields, for reasons fully detailed herein." 5 years, I said aloud to my empty car. It took her 5 years to call, and 24 hours to lose everything she thought she'd inherit. I closed the envelope, secured it in the leather portfolio I'd brought specifically for this purpose. Drove home through mid-morning traffic. The afternoon stretched ahead. Hours to wait before evening, before the dinner invitation she'd issued so casually, so confident I'd arrive with money in submission. I showered again, taking my time. Chose my clothes, the same dark jeans, a different shirt, this one blue. Casual, but not dismissive. I wasn't dressing for her approval, just for my own sense of appropriateness. At 4 o'clock I made coffee, but didn't drink it. Paced my living room. Checked the portfolio again, confirming all 6 copies were present, properly organized. At 5, I decided to leave. Better to arrive early than to sit here counting minutes. I placed the portfolio carefully on the passenger seat of the Mercedes, the car that had started all this, gleaming silver evidence of resources she'd decided to claim. Walked to my front door, paused with my hand on the knob. My home. Modest, comfortable, paid for. My sanctuary for 5 years while she maintained her silence. I looked back at the living room, the bookshelf with its photo albums, the quiet order I'd built. Then I walked out, locked the door behind me, and got in my car. The drive to the suburbs took 40 minutes. Traffic was lighter heading out of the city. I navigated familiar roads, though I hadn't driven them in years. Her address hadn't changed, she'd said. I'd never been to this house, purchased after our estrangement, but I'd looked it up online, knew what to expect. The sun was lowering, painting everything in amber light. I drove with the portfolio beside me, carrying 6 copies of her inheritance, all of them zeros. The neighborhood announced itself in manicured lawns and fresh paint, upper-middle-class suburban confidence, houses that whispered success without shouting it. Cora and Stuart's home was a 2-story colonial with professional landscaping, the kind of presentation that mattered to people who cared about appearances. I sat in my car for a long moment, hands on the steering wheel, the portfolio beside me on the passenger seat. Through the front window, I could see movement. They were watching for me. I picked up the portfolio and walked to their door. Measured steps. No hesitation. The door opened before I could knock. "Dad!" Cora's voice was too bright. Her smile stretched too wide. "I'm so glad you came." She hugged me briefly, a performance of warmth where no warmth existed. Stuart appeared behind her, extending his hand with practiced congeniality. "Harley, good to see you." Come in, come in." The contrast was staggering. 5 years of silence, and now they greeted me like we'd had lunch last week. Their dining room was elaborately staged. Candles flickered on a table set with wine glasses and cloth napkins. The food, clearly from an expensive restaurant, still in its takeout containers being transferred to serving dishes, smelled rich and carefully chosen. "We thought we'd make this special," Cora said, gesturing to a chair. "Family should celebrate being together again." I sat, placing the portfolio beside my chair. Stuart's eyes flicked to it, then away. Cora poured wine with trembling hands. Nerves, not emotion. The meal proceeded with stilted conversation. Cora asked about my health, my house, my investments, questions designed to inventory my resources without appearing mercenary. Stuart discussed market trends and business opportunities, establishing his expertise. I ate little, watched everything. They exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Silent communication, rehearsed coordination. After the main course, Stuart leaned back with calculated casualness. "Harley, I wanted to run something by you. There's an incredible investment opportunity that's come across my desk." His voice shifted into salesman mode, smooth and confident. Residential development in a growing market. The returns are projected at 18 to 22% annually. Really solid fundamentals. We need to move fast, though, he continued. The window closes this week. Early investors get the premium positions. Cora added her piece right on cue. Dad, Stuart's been working so hard on this. We finally have a chance to really build something. Her voice carried practiced emotion. I know you understand what it means to build a future. You did it with your company. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, letting them finish. Stuart laid out more details. Deliberately vague specifics, wrapped in financial jargon, meant to sound legitimate while saying nothing concrete. Cora nodded along, playing the supportive wife, the dutiful daughter who just wanted her father's help. When they finally paused, waiting for my response, I spoke quietly. I do understand building a future. I spent 43 years building mine. I met Stuart's eyes, then Cora's. I also understand what happens when people only see you as a means to an end. I reached down to the portfolio, opened it with deliberate slowness, withdrew 2 copies of the will, slid them across the table like dealing cards, one to Cora, one to Stuart. The documents landed between the candles and wine glasses with devastating finality. Stuart picked his up first. I watched his face transition. Confusion, comprehension, fury. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. What is this? His voice rose. A will? You brought your will to dinner? Cora read slower, her performance crumbling as understanding set in. Tears started before she finished the first page, but I'd seen enough angry tears in my life to recognize them. She wasn't heartbroken. She was furious at being denied. You asked for $200,000 after 5 years of not speaking to me, I said, my voice calm and factual. I thought you should know where you stand. You're not in this document. Neither of you. Everything goes to the Construction Industry Veterans Support Fund. How can you do this? Cora's voice shook with rage, disguised as grief. I'm your daughter, your only child. You were my daughter. I kept my tone steady, controlled. Then you chose to become a stranger who only calls when she wants money. This is what that choice costs. Stuart slammed the document on the table. You can't do this. We'll fight this. You're not in your right mind. We'll prove it. I stood, preparing to leave. I'm perfectly sound. Ask the notary, the attorney, the witnesses. This document is legal, filed, and final. I looked at both of them, seeing their calculation exposed, their masks discarded. You wanted to know my value in dollars. Now you know. To you, I was worth a phone call. To me, my legacy is worth more than that. I walked toward the door. Behind me, Cora's voice turned desperate. You'll regret this. Don't walk out that door. I paused at the threshold, but didn't turn back. I've spent 5 years with regrets. Tonight, I finally have clarity instead. I stepped into the cool evening air. Behind me, the shouting began, but now they were arguing with each other, not me. Accusations flying about whose idea this was, whose plan had failed. I got into my Mercedes, started the engine. As I pulled away from the curb, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The front door stood open, Stuart silhouetted in the light, phone already pressed to his ear. I drove into the darkening evening knowing this wasn't ending. This was just beginning. My phone woke me before dawn, buzzing insistently, vibrating against the nightstand in the gray pre-sunrise light. I lay still for a moment, awareness settling in slowly. The phone kept buzzing. I picked it up. The lock screen was filled with notifications. 6 missed calls from Cora. 3 from Stuart, several from numbers I didn't recognize. Text message previews scrolled down the screen. Too many to count. The war had begun while I slept. I set the phone down and went to make coffee. Showered, dressed. Established normalcy before engaging with the attack. I'd expected this. They were panicking, and panicked people made mistakes. At my kitchen table with my laptop, I began documenting. Took screenshots of everything before opening a single message. Created a folder labeled Evidence. Then methodically, I started reading. Cora's early texts alternated between tearful apologies and furious accusations. Dad, please call me. I'm sorry we argued. Can we talk about this calmly? You're my only family. 6 hours later. You're being incredibly selfish. After everything I've been through, you do this to me? Call me back immediately. Stuart's messages were purely strategic. An email with subject line legal action appeared mid-morning. Mr. Fields, your actions yesterday demonstrate either malicious intent or diminished mental capacity. We will be consulting with an attorney about challenging your recent will on grounds of undue influence and incompetence. This can be resolved, or it can become very expensive for your estate. Your choice. I copied each message into a document, noted date, time, sender, categorized them: threat, manipulation, guilt trip, legal intimidation. The construction business had taught me that documentation protected you when people turned hostile. The voicemails were worse. Cora sobbing about family. Stuart's cold recitation of legal options. Cora again. How can you do this to your own daughter? I made mistakes, but 5 years? You're going to punish me forever? That money is my inheritance, from my family. I saved every recording to my computer, created a spreadsheet tracking every contact attempt, date, time, method, sender, message type, content summary. The second day brought more of the same. The third morning brought Cora herself. I was at my kitchen window with coffee when her car pulled aggressively into my driveway. She got out, slammed the door, and stood on my front lawn. "Harley," she shouted, "I know you're in there. You can't hide from this." I moved to my front window where I could observe while staying uninvolved, pulled out my phone and started recording video. Pennsylvania law allowed recording on your own property for security purposes. I was building a case if I needed one. Cora alternated between crying and yelling. "You're being cruel, vindictive. Everyone needs to know what kind of father does this." Neighbors were noticing. Curtains moved in nearby windows. Then Danny Morrison emerged from his house 2 doors down. Early 70s retired police officer, steady as bedrock. He walked toward Cora with the measured confidence of someone who'd spent decades handling public disturbances. "Miss, I'm going to ask you to leave." His voice was calm but carried authority. "This is disturbing the peace. Mr. Fields is within his rights to not engage with you. If you don't leave voluntarily, I'll need to make a phone call." He tapped his phone meaningfully. Cora turned on him. "You don't understand what he's doing. I understand you're on someone else's property. Shouting." Danny's tone didn't change. "That's enough. Time to go." She got back in her car, but not before a final shout toward my window. "This isn't over. He'll regret this. We'll see what a judge thinks." She drove away, tires squealing slightly. Danny waited until she was gone, then walked to my door. I opened it before he knocked. "You all right, Harley?" His weathered face showed concern. "That was quite a show. Want me to file a report?" "I'm fine, Danny. I've documented everything." I gestured to my phone. "If they escalate further, I might need you as a witness, if you're willing." 30 years on the force. I know how family disputes get ugly." He nodded slowly. "You've got my number. That video you took, keep that safe. Might need it." After he left, I saved the video file to my evidence folder, made a note about Danny's availability as a witness, sent him a brief thank you text, establishing written record of the incident. That evening I composed an email to Margaret Chen. Subject line: anticipated legal challenge. I attached everything: message screenshots, voicemail transcripts, the video of Cora's scene, my timeline spreadsheet, staying one step ahead. I closed my laptop as evening settled in. For the first time in 3 days, my phone was quiet. No calls, no texts. The silence felt ominous rather than peaceful. Then a notification appeared. One new email from an unknown sender. Subject line: R.E. Fields Estate Matter. Legal representation. I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen. This was their formal response. The harassment phase was over. The legal war was beginning. 2 days of quiet had passed. I sat in my home office reviewing investment statements, trying to maintain some semblance of routine. When my phone rang and Margaret's name appeared, I knew immediately. "Harley, I received formal notice this morning." Her voice was serious but measured. "Stuart retained Nathan Berkowitz. He's aggressive but predictable. They're filing to contest the will on grounds of diminished capacity and emotional duress. We need to move fast." I felt relief more than anxiety. The ambiguity was over. The fight was now formal, with rules and procedures. "I expected this," I said. "What do we need to do?" "Medical evaluation, psychological assessment, anything that proves you were and are of sound mind. The stronger the documentation, the faster we can shut this down. Can you see your doctor today?" I'll make it happen. What else? I'll prepare our defensive package. But Harley, they'll argue the timing proves this was rash, emotionally driven. We need to show deliberation, careful thought, professional consultation. I called Dr. Stevens' office the moment we hung up, explained the situation briefly. His nurse found an opening that afternoon. The examination was comprehensive. Cognitive function tests, memory, reasoning, processing speed, blood work to rule out medical issues affecting judgment. Dr. Stevens was thorough, methodical, checking everything. Harley, your cognitive function is excellent, he said, reviewing the results. Memory, reasoning, judgment, all within normal range for your age, actually better than average. Blood pressure's good, no signs of neurological issues. You're healthier than most 67-year-olds I see. I need that in writing, Doc, detailed. Someone's trying to claim I'm not competent to make my own decisions. He looked up, understanding immediately. Family dispute over money? Something like that. I'll have a comprehensive report ready by tomorrow. 15 years I've treated you, Harley. You're one of the most clear-headed patients I have. The next day brought the psychological evaluation. Dr. Patricia Huang's office was quiet, professional. She specialized in elder competency assessments, Margaret had said. 2 hours of testing, mental status examination, decision-making scenarios, emotional state evaluation. Walk me through how you made the decision to change your will, she said, pen poised over her notepad. What was your thought process? I laid it out clearly, organized. My daughter didn't contact me for 5 years. Then she called demanding $200,000, the day after seeing a photo of my car online. That showed me she only valued me as a source of money. I consulted my attorney, considered my options for 24 hours, and decided my assets would do more good supporting veterans than enabling someone who sees relationships as transactions. That's a very coherent, logical progression, she made notes. Do you feel you were pressured into this decision by anyone? The opposite. I was pressured to give money. I chose not to. She asked more questions, probing for signs of coercion, depression, impaired judgment. Found none. By the end, she seemed satisfied. Mr. Fields, you demonstrate full mental capacity and sound decision-making. I'll provide a detailed report confirming that. Margaret reviewed both reports in her office, satisfaction visible on her face. This is solid. 2 independent medical professionals, both stating you're fully competent, combined with the timeline showing deliberation, the consultation with me, the notary process. Their case is weak, but expect them to fight dirty. They already are, I said. The gossip campaign started 2 days ago. Her eyes sharpened. What gossip? I explained. Tom Chen, a former business associate, had called yesterday. Ran into Stewart at a restaurant. Stewart seemed genuinely worried, Tom said. Mentioned I was having difficulties, memory problems, emotional issues. Document everything, Margaret said firmly. If it crosses into defamation, that's another tool we can use. I spent that evening making calls, not defending myself emotionally, just sharing facts. When Tom expressed concern, I was direct. Tom, I appreciate it. I've just completed full medical and psychological evaluations. I'm happy to send you copies if you want to see for yourself. Stewart is trying to contest my will because he didn't like what's in it. The doctor visits are part of protecting my right to make my own choices. Silence. Then, I appreciate your honesty, Harley. Stewart made it sound different. I imagine he did. By evening, I'd reached 4 people who'd heard versions of Stewart's story. Each conversation was similar, calm facts countering emotional manipulation. I documented every call, saved every voicemail Stewart and Cora had left, built the evidence file larger. Margaret and I sat in her office, documents spread across the conference table, medical reports, legal briefs, the evidence folder from the harassment days. She leaned back, studying the array of documentation. We're well defended now, she said, but they'll keep pushing. What's your next move? I was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then I said something that made her look up sharply. What if I remove what they're fighting over? Not from the will. Make it disappear before I'm even gone. Margaret leaned forward, interested. Explain. If they're contesting my will, they're fighting over my estate after I die. But what if significant portions of my estate aren't there anymore? What if I transfer assets now during my lifetime to the charity? Her expression shifted to calculation. An irrevocable trust. Exactly. She paused, considering. That's aggressive. Once you do that, those assets are gone. You can't change your mind. I won't change my mind. She pulled her laptop closer. Let me draft something. Come back in 2 days. We'll make this happen. I spent those 2 days reviewing my finances. Account statements, investment portfolios, property valuations, calculated what I could afford to transfer while maintaining comfortable retirement. The number settled at 500,000, significant enough to matter, not so much I'd compromise my security. When I arrived at Margaret's office, coffee was already waiting. She'd prepared too. An irrevocable charitable trust removes assets from your estate immediately, she explained, pulling up documents on her laptop. They're gone. Not in your will, not contestable. Cora and Stuart can fight over the will all they want, but they can't touch what's already transferred. What about my living expenses? I asked. I don't want to put myself in a position where I need their help. You'll retain approximately $1.3 million in assets. Your house, your car, remaining investments. More than enough for comfortable retirement. The $500,000 represents about 27% of your total estate. Significant enough to matter, not so much you're compromising your security. I studied the trust documents she'd prepared, pages of legal language, but the core was clear: irrevocable transfer to the Construction Industry Veterans Support Fund. Once signed, permanent. And once I sign this, it's permanent? I needed to hear it clearly. No one can challenge it, claim I was incompetent, force it back into the estate. Margaret's response was firm, confident. Irrevocable means irrevocable. We have your medical evaluations, witness testimony, documentation of your deliberative process. This trust is as bulletproof as we can make any legal document. I looked at the papers, thinking about what this meant. $500,000 gone from any future fight, transformed from contested inheritance into immediate charitable benefit. Then let's do it, I said. They want to fight over my money? Let's give them less to fight over. The signing process was meticulous. Same witnesses as the will, same careful notarization. Margaret walked me through each section. Grantor provisions, beneficiary designations, irrevocability clauses. I paused before each signature, rereading the critical passages, making it clear, documented, that I understood exactly what I was doing. When the signatures were complete, I pulled out my phone. Mark? My investment broker answered on the second ring. I need to execute a transfer. $500,000 in securities from my primary investment account to a new trust account. Margaret Chen will provide the account details. That's a significant transfer, Mr. Fields. His voice carried surprise. This is for a charitable trust? That's right. The Construction Industry Veterans Support Fund. People who built things deserve support. I'll process it today. You'll have confirmation by close of business. Margaret watched me pocket my phone. You mentioned wanting to make a public statement. I'd advise caution. Anything you say can be used in litigation. I understand. But right now, Stuart and Cora are controlling the narrative. People are hearing that I'm incompetent or cruel. I want my version out there. Not emotional, not attacking, just clear about my right to make my own choices. Keep it brief, factual. Don't name them. Don't defend specific decisions. Just assert your autonomy and competence, and run it by me before you post. That evening I sat at my computer, composing carefully, wrote several drafts, removed anything that sounded bitter or vindictive, kept only the dignified core. Finally, I sent it to Margaret. How's this? Families are built on respect and love, not financial obligation. After much thought and consultation with legal and medical professionals, I've made decisions about my legacy that reflect my values. I hope everyone can respect that we all have the right to choose how our lives' work benefits the world. Her response came quickly. That's good. Dignified. Doesn't give them ammunition. The reference to legal and medical professionals subtly establishes your competence without being defensive. Post it. I clicked publish and watched. Within minutes, comments began appearing. Danny Morrison. Well said, Harley. A man's entitled to his decisions. Respect. A former construction colleague. Harley, you built one of the most solid companies in Philadelphia with integrity. Whatever you decide about your legacy will have that same integrity. Don't let anyone tell you different. More comments accumulated. Support from people I'd worked with, done business with, lived near for years. The narrative was shifting. I wasn't the confused old man Stuart described. I was someone making clear, autonomous choices. I read through the responses, feeling validation I hadn't experienced in years. My community saw me clearly. Then a new notification, a private message request from an unknown name. I clicked it open. The message was brief, urgent. You should know what they're planning. Can we talk? This has gone too far. The profile showed a woman's name I didn't recognize. No mutual friends, no profile picture beyond a generic avatar. I stared at the message, finger hovering over the reply button. Was this genuine concern or another manipulation tactic? Stuart and Cora trying a different angle. The cursor blinked in the reply field, waiting for my decision. 3 days passed. I'd ignored the mysterious Facebook message, likely another manipulation attempt, I decided. Then my phone rang. Cora's name appeared on the screen. Dad? Her voice was subdued, nothing like the angry demands of previous calls. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but Stuart and I have been doing a lot of thinking. We handled everything wrong. Could we meet? Just to talk? Not about money, about us. I felt immediate skepticism. After everything, this sudden shift felt calculated. Where? I asked. Anywhere you want. Your choice. There's a coffee shop on Market Street, Thursday afternoon, 2 o'clock. We'll be there. Thank you, Dad. Really? I spent the next 2 days preparing, checked that my phone's voice recorder worked properly. Pennsylvania was a one-party consent state. I could legally record any conversation I participated in. Rehearsed questions mentally, ways to guide dialogue, techniques to encourage honesty. Thursday arrived. I drove downtown and entered the busy coffee shop early, choosing a corner table with my back to the wall. Activated the recording app and placed my phone face down on the table before they arrived. Stuart and Cora entered together. No expensive clothes today, casual, subdued. Cora's eyes looked red, as if she'd been crying. They sat across from me, both wearing expressions of remorse. Dad, I know we handled everything wrong. Cora's voice trembled slightly. The things I said, the way I've been talking to a counselor, and I realize I let Stuart's stress about money affect how I treated you. That was wrong. Stuart leaned forward, seemingly earnest. Mr. Fields, Harley, I owe you an apology too. I pushed Cora to ask for money when we should have just asked to reconnect. Financial pressure made me lose perspective on what's actually important. I nodded slowly, maintaining calm body language. I appreciate you saying that. These past weeks have been difficult. I've had time to think too. So have we. Cora reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. We don't care about the will or the money. We just want you back in our lives. That's what matters. I let silence hang for a moment, and then spoke carefully. I've been reconsidering some of my decisions, wondering if I acted too hastily, too emotionally. There might be room for adjustments. Stuart's eyes sharpened. Adjustments? Like to the will or the trust? So they knew about the trust. They'd been investigating. I'm just thinking out loud, I said. Nothing's set in stone. Cora leaned forward, eagerness breaking through her subdued demeanor. Dad, if you did reconsider, we wouldn't need much. Maybe just enough to cover our mortgage, get us stable. 200,000 would change everything for us. Stuart added quickly, we have some debts that are causing stress. If you could help with those, maybe set up something regular, even just 5,000 monthly, we could focus on rebuilding our relationship without financial pressure hanging over us. I pulled out a notepad, wrote down the figure, tapped my pen thoughtfully. You're saying money stress is preventing you from being fully present in a relationship. Exactly. Stuart didn't hear the trap in my question. Once we know we're financially secure, we can really invest in family time. Maybe Sunday dinners, holidays together. We'd make it work. Cora laughed, nervous, revealing, I'd even tolerate Stuart's parents at Thanksgiving if it meant having you there too. Then more seriously, we'd make whatever effort needed. That's what family does, right? So if the financial piece was resolved, you'd be able to prioritize family. Absolutely. Cora nodded emphatically. That's really what this has all been about. Security. Once we have that, everything else falls into place. Stewart pressed forward. Could we maybe talk timelines? If you were willing to reconsider, how soon could changes be made? We have some payments due next month that are causing anxiety. I'd heard enough. 20 minutes of them discussing dollar amounts, payment schedules, what they'd tolerate for money. All of it recorded, clear, damning. I stood, gathering my notepad. I'll think about everything you've said. This conversation has been clarifying. Cora stood too, desperate edge in her voice. Dad, wait. When will we hear from you? Should we call tomorrow? I'll be in touch. I walked toward the door. Take care. I sat in my car for several minutes, immediately backing up the audio file to cloud storage, emailing a copy to myself. Then I drove home listening to portions of it, verifying quality. Every word was clear. That evening I sat at my computer with headphones on, listening again. Stewart's voice. Once we know we're financially secure, we can really invest in family time. Cora laughing about tolerating family obligations. I stopped the playback, picked up my phone, sent a text to Margaret. Meeting tomorrow? I have something you need to hear. It's time to end this. The message showed as delivered. I set the phone down with quiet finality. The conference room felt formal, tense. Stewart, Cora, and their attorney, Nathan Berkowitz, sat on one side of Margaret's large table. I took my seat across from them, carrying only a slim folder. The audio recorder was in my pocket, already connected to Margaret's speaker system. Nathan opened professionally. Thank you all for coming. My clients believe Mr. Fields' recent testamentary decisions were made under significant emotional duress, following a family conflict. However, in the interest of avoiding prolonged litigation, they're prepared to settle if Mr. Fields will restore Ms. Fields as primary beneficiary, with a minimum inheritance of $1.2 million. Margaret responded with practiced calm. Let me address the diminished capacity claim first. She slid documents across the table. Medical reports, psychological evaluations, notarized statements. Dr. Stevens, Mr. Fields' physician of 15 years, conducted comprehensive cognitive evaluation. Perfect scores. Dr. Huang, a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in competency assessments, found him fully capable of reasoned decision-making. No signs of coercion, depression, or impaired judgment. Nathan attempted a counter-argument. The emotional context remains relevant. Making such a drastic decision immediately following a contentious phone call suggests... The timeline shows 24 hours of deliberation, Margaret interrupted smoothly. Consultation with legal counsel and methodical execution, hardly impulsive. Furthermore, she paused for effect. 3 days ago, Mr. Fields established an irrevocable charitable trust, transferring $500,000 in liquid assets. Those funds are no longer part of his estate. They cannot be contested, challenged, or recovered. Stewart's face went white. You did what? When? I spoke for the first time. After your attorney filed his challenge. I decided if you were going to fight over my estate, I'd make the estate smaller. Cora turned to Nathan, desperate. Can he do that? Isn't that... Can't we stop it? Nathan's professional mask showed cracks. An irrevocable trust, properly executed, is beyond challenge. The assets are gone. Margaret delivered the final blow. There's one more thing. She connected the audio device to her speaker system. Mr. Fields met with your clients 2 days ago. Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state for recording. I think you should hear this conversation. She pressed play. Stewart's recorded voice filled the room. Once we know we're financially secure, we can really invest in family time. Maybe Sunday dinners, holidays together. Cora's laugh. I'd even tolerate Stewart's parents at Thanksgiving. We'd make whatever effort needed. Stewart again. Could we talk timelines? If you were willing to reconsider, how soon could changes be made? I watched Nathan's face, saw recognition, understanding, the professional calculation that this case was lost. The recording ended. Nathan conferred quietly with Stewart and Cora. Their whispered argument was sharp, bitter. Finally, Nathan spoke formally. After reviewing the comprehensive evidence, my clients have decided to withdraw their challenge. We acknowledge Mr. Fields acted within his legal rights with full mental capacity. Stuart hissed at Cora, loud enough for me to hear. You and your tolerating comment. You couldn't just stick to the script. Cora's face crumpled. She looked at me, tears streaming. Daddy, please. This isn't how it should end. I stood slowly, looked at her for a long moment. 5 years ago, you chose money over me. You stopped calling, stopped visiting, cut me completely out of your life until you saw a photo of an expensive car. Then suddenly I was worth contacting, but only with a demand for $200,000. That showed me exactly what I meant to you. I paused, making sure she heard every word. Now you know what that choice costs. I turned toward the door. You'll both be fine. You have each other, jobs, health. You just don't have my money. Live with the choices you made. I walked out, didn't slam the door, just walked away. Behind me, Margaret's voice. Nathan, I'll send over formal withdrawal documents for your signatures. This matter is concluded. I drove home through afternoon traffic. The city looked different somehow, sharper, clearer. I'd spent 5 years hoping for reconciliation, keeping doors open, waiting for my daughter to remember I was more than a bank account. That wait was over. At home, I made coffee and sat in my living room. The photo album was still on the bookshelf. I didn't open it. Those memories belonged to a different relationship, a different daughter. The woman in that conference room wasn't someone I recognized anymore. My phone buzzed. Danny Morrison. Heard through the grapevine things got resolved. Hope you're doing okay. I texted back. I'm fine. Thanks for everything. Another message, this time from Margaret. Well done. You protected what matters. Call if you need anything. I set the phone down and looked around my house. Modest, comfortable, mine. The Mercedes was in the driveway. My investments were secure. $500,000 was already supporting veterans who'd built things with their hands, just like I had. Cora and Stuart would tell their version of this story, I knew. Paint me as cruel, vindictive, a father who chose money over family. But I had the recordings, the documentation, the evidence that showed who chose what. I'd spent 43 years building a construction company. Building required solid foundations, required knowing when structures were compromised beyond repair, required the wisdom to walk away from projects that would only collapse and take you down with them. This was simply another kind of construction, building boundaries, protecting what I'd created, ensuring my legacy went to people who valued effort and integrity. The sun was setting, painting my living room in amber light. I sat in my chair, coffee growing cold, and felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years. Peace, not happiness. There was sadness in this ending, genuine grief for the relationship that could have been, but peace. The clarity of knowing I'd done what needed doing, protected my autonomy, set consequences for behavior that demanded consequences. Tomorrow, I'd call the Veterans Fund, see how they planned to use the trust. Maybe visit some of the programs they ran. Connect with people who understood that building something meaningful required more than entitlement and calculation. Tonight, I just sat in the quiet of my home, free from manipulation, free from false hope, free from waiting for someone who only saw me as a resource to exploit. The legal war was over. I'd won. But more importantly, I'd protected what I'd spent a lifetime building, not just money, but dignity, autonomy, and the right to choose who benefited from my life's work. That was victory enough. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching,